Hello, everyone, and welcome to CodeCast by STL Tech Talk, where we are going to bring you the content you want and need: instructional, informative, unique, and insightful commentary on programming and technology. My name is JJ, and I'm joined today, by my good friend and coding expert who strives to bring developer knowledge to the masses and has spent the last 20 years architecting and implementing highly scalable ASP.NET applications, our very own Gus Emery. Hello, Gus, and welcome back to a fantastic show.
Hey, JJ, how you doing today?
I'm doing, you know what? I'm beaming, dude, because my team won, and I'm happy, and it's just great. It's phenomenal. I can't wait to get to this show. It's been, what, a week since we were able to hang out, so let's get on with getting on. I want to thank you for everything you do for the show, and I want to thank our listeners. So all of our listeners, go to codecaststl.com, or you can find us on Twitter, #Codecast, or @CodecastSTL. And don't forget, you can interact with the show by sending us feedback to contact@stltechtalk.com. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of the show, Inertia Software, creating cutting-edge, highly scalable Microsoft technological solutions to the energy industry. Visit inertia-software.com to see how they can help you. And Tech Systems. You want to advance your career in IT, but you don't want to submit to hundreds of resumes to online job boards in the hopes of finding your next job? Your solution is simple. Tech Systems is the leading IT staffing provider in the United States and is ready to be your career partner. Their goal is to help you achieve your personal and professional goals. Contact a local recruiter today at techsystems.com/St. Louis. That's STLOUIS. That's techsystems.com/St. Louis. So thank you for your sponsor of the show, and go visit them, techsystems.com/St. Louis. So let's get the show kicked off. Now, this is going to be a little different than most of you are used to listening to. And we're going to start off with some stuff we've seen over the last couple of weeks in terms of developer news, what we personally use, and all those kinds of things. So let's go ahead and get it started. I'll start us off here. We're going to talk about what things I find useful. The first thing I want to say is Microsoft has a great and swath of tools to help developers solve problems. Now, this episode is kind of a tribute to Don Felker and what he did with a post that he has on his site, and I'll get to that in a moment towards the end of the show. But it was about how developers are just engineers, and engineers are essentially finding tools to solve problems. And however that job needs to get done is how you should do it. So what we're going to talk about here today is about how to use the tools that are at your disposal, if you can get to the internet, obviously, that are at your disposal in order to accomplish the task that you want to accomplish. So I'm going to start off with Microsoft, msdn.com, microsoft.com is in library tools in order for people to click on. We're going to have links for this specific show on our site, codecaststl.com. Also on Google plus Codecast STL. We've been given the high status of our own plus version instead of a whole bunch of weird numbers on there. So my first one up, like I said, is Microsoft and their Microsoft Virtual Academy. There's tons of tutorials and stuff. Gus, you can probably speak to this, man. There's so much. There's so much about so many different things about their stuff, and the library about Windows and all the different Win32, the modern apps, the universal apps, all those cool, hip things that are going to be coming out, and C#, C++, how you can use Win.js, how you can use Visual Studios to just do literally anything you want to do to solve problems. So that is awesome. You can click on that. Gus, you're up next.
Yeah, I was going to say that inside the MSDN library, there's tons of documentation. In fact, some of the first stuff that I go to when I'm researching an issue or how to implement something. Excuse me, I'm trying to get over a cold. But anyway, long and short of it is, great resource, one of the best for Microsoft development. I'll let you kick it back off, JJ.
No, I didn't know you were getting over a cold, man. Well, speedy recovery. We hope that you get to a speedy recovery. But you're a guy who like literally you're like Superman. You're flying all around the world, putting out fires and stuff like that. So that's awesome. So
Occasionally.
so the next tool is Pluralsight. Now, many of you who watch this show probably have heard about Pluralsight, but I'm going to talk about it anyways, just because I've had personal knowledge with this stuff. Pluralsight, it's like plural, Plural, and then site, not spelled S-I-T-E, but spelled SIGHT.com. It's a great source for getting started because I always like the diversity in which we're all given information, right? So if I don't like how it's being presented to me by the Microsoft Virtual Academy or MSDN, whatever, I can maybe get it from Pluralsight. They offer the online training programs to accomplish stuff from the Adobe suite, like Premiere and Photoshop. Many of you listening to the show have come across designers who love Adobe's Creative Cloud suite and use that stuff for like everything. So there's a lot of really neat courses on that and more. So from building building Android apps, building iOS apps, how to use Xcode, there's the new Swift and the new all sorts of different languages and different courses and stuff. I can't talk enough about these guys, and I still haven't responded to them, and I apologize if there was somebody from there is listening to this show. I think they do listen, so thank you for listening to the show. But they wanted me to do a testimonial, and I haven't sent them that back yet. It's not because I don't care. It's because I'm busy, and I apologize. But so Gus, what do you have to say about this?
Well, one thing that I'd like to say is that a lot of our guests actually have been Pluralsight authors for the most part, or have Pluralsight. A lot of my friends have Pluralsight courses in the works. I'm looking at their stats at a glance, and I wanted to throw this out to anybody watching the show that doesn't think that this is a great resource. Currently, they have over 3,700 courses. That derives down to over 131,000 video clips, which ends up being 11,150 hours of content. Yeah, that's across 700 instructors and 750,000 learners across 150 countries. So that'll tell you how good this site is. I use it for a lot of my training. My company that I'm working for right now uses it for training. Most of my friends actually reach out to this one. One of the first ones anyway, for training when they need to hit video stuff. I can tell you it's really good. The authors are very in-depth, and they have a wide variety of courses across all different kinds of templates. So, I mean, it's not just Windows programming. This is Java and C++ and Delphi and everything else. So it's a really good place to go.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's across all platforms. You got Ruby on Rails. You got Ruby. There's tons of stuff to check out, guys. There's tons of stuff to check out.
Yeah, I should have said Java and servers as well.
Oh, servers. That was the other thing.
Yeah, infrastructure is built in there as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that the authors that were on this show are on do a lot of the courses on there. Miguel Castro being one that comes to mind. And I forget who was the guy with dreadlocks that we talked. Oh, like you said, Don.
Oh, Jim. That's Jim.
Yeah,
Jim is working for them now.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff, man. Yeah. So you're up next with
Wintellect. So this is another training site, but they do more than just training. They actually have on-site instructor-led training as well. So they're actually a teaching company. They don't necessarily just go for the videos. However, they do have videos as well. One of the people that was on our show, John V. Peterson, or JVP as we like to call him, is one of the people that work there. They also do consulting services, cloud solutions, assessments, and other things. But one of my favorite things on here under the training piece is being able to actually read their news. They actually have a news section. If you go into Wintellect and hit the Dev Center, I believe it is. I'll double check here. But yeah, the Dev Center, and you'll see articles by certain people, Paul Ballard, Josh Carroll, etc. But I also saw one up here by a friend of the show, Rob Tiffany, who is a fantastic author and technologist. Not to mention the fact that there's a video up here, 5 Questions with Billy Hollis. Highly recommend it. Billy, I want you on the show. Come on our show.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've seen that one. That's pretty awesome. So WinSelect, there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, Gus covered great job. He covered a lot of that stuff, and again, JVP and if you're snowed in, dude, rock on. Because
Yeah.
I think we talked to him right before the last show. It was
Yes.
kind of funny, but anyway, so that's WinSelect. I was very interested to hear about this other source because until Gus and John mentioned it, I didn't even know this existed. So that's really really cool. Next
Yeah.
up is go
I
ahead.
was going to say there's actually a couple more others that we won't get into today, but I think there's 4 or 5 now that are actually handling courses like they are.
Oh, nice, nice. So the next thing I want to talk about is dev.windows.com. Many of you know that I'm kind of more prone to the Microsoft stuff, but if you go to this, what's really cool is you get to see a very comprehensive way in which a developer can start developing universal apps, first-time apps. Use Visual Studio's Community Edition, which is free. A whole bunch of free stuff to make money, just like how you can do on Android, but you can't really do on iOS. So this is really cool. One of the things that are going to be coming up are developing universal apps. Again, C# and XAML Jumpstart. So that's going to be really cool. There's a lot of Jumpstart applications, just a lot of cool stuff. So you got download tools, get coding examples. That is a really cool function that there's a lot of programmers, and Gus, you can probably speak to this, who they reach this plateau of not wanting to learn anything new. And I would say that those are kind of the worst as far as trying to not embrace new technologies. A lot of the things that we try to do on this show is talk about other ways of solving a task. And again, this is a shout out to Don Felker for wanting to talk about this kind of stuff. But if you're an older programmer, download these code samples and play around with some of this stuff, because there are some new ways of doing things that could be better or faster that you wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't have tried this. There's the Windows App Studio on this dev.windows.com. You can submit your apps. You can get Dev Center apps. You can get preview OSs to try out new stuff that's coming down, like the Windows 10 stuff. A lot of people are building up hype about this. We're going to talk about the HoloLens and all that other kind of stuff, and that's a part of the future. I'm very excited. So if you want to get on the ground floor a little bit here, this is a really good tool and resource for you to do that.
Yeah, definitely. This is one of the places where I actually watch that. Now, talking about another company that does online training, this is another branch of Microsoft that will do some things like building apps for Windows Phone 8.1 Jumpstart, right? They also have other things. Channel 9 you'll find inside of the Microsoft catalog as well, and Channel 9 allows you to learn quite a bit, actually. The instructors and the commentary there is really good. In fact, I'll throw a link to a interview that happened with Miguel Castro to the show links. That's very interesting, actually, about what they talk about and how they talk, and it's a couple of old friends talking together, and it was really good. So I'll throw that in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have another one in here. It's Books 24/7. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Books247.com. So this is one of the resources that I used as a junior programmer, and it's still around. It's actually now part of Skillsoft, which is yet another online trainer. They also do other things other than just online training, but online training is one of their deals. But here's the really cool part of Books 24/7. Is that they have hundreds of thousands of books on there, mostly technical, where instead of going out and buying these books for $50 or $60 a shot, you can actually go in there and read the chapters that you want and actually surf through them. Very, very good product. I don't believe it was very expensive the last time I used it. I don't know what the price point is today, but I had it all the way up until about 6 months ago and just loved it, actually, still to this day.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool one.
That is a pretty cool one. Okay, next up for me, Linda Lynda. Now, I want to let everybody know none of these people sponsor us. We come across this stuff and we just want to share it with you guys. So I'm not. This is no endorsing or whatever. This is something that we found useful. Okay, lynda.com. One of the first thing that pops up is if you hover over the tile for developer, 377 courses for developers, over 16,000 video tutorials. Now, you're not going to watch all those, but it's nice to know that there's a bank of that kind of stuff in the works there. You got developer, design, web, photography, business, right? A lot of people, they are good programmers, but not so good in the business area. Education, 3D and animation, video, audio and music. You can join. There's unlimited access. There's a bunch of different tiers and stuff like that. But I gotta say, watching these individuals do what they do, pretty amazing. They're endorsed by PC Magazine, and tons of other. They got partners with Adobe, Microsoft, NBC, Full Sail University, just to name a few. So pretty amazing stuff. They got apps that are kind of cross-platform that they talk about. There's just tons of different cool stuff. You can check out some of their free tutorials at the very bottom of their website page. But again, I don't think that trying out any of these will hurt you in any way. I think you can only benefit from it. And a lot of these have like free. You can access so many videos for free. So try it out. I mean, it's really no skin off your back. Arguably, they'll probably send you, marketing material. That's why I have certain email addresses that I assign for these sorts of things for free trials. But try this stuff out. I think you'd find it very useful.
Cool. The next one that we're going to talk about is IT Pro TV, right?
Yes.
I think you know a little bit more about that than I do. However, the one really, really cool thing for us technology geeks and nerds is the fact that they actually have a Roku channel that you can learn from. I have Rokus. Yes, they do. Yeah. So I'll let you talk about it, but this is for certifications more. But it's still learned for free. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty cool stuff.
So I was just getting ready to say, if you listen to Windows Weekly or really any of the Twit Network's productions, they do a good job explaining what IT Pro TV is. Now, you can get your IT certification preparing and IT training courses streamed live with new courses and content every day. You can literally click Watch Us Live and access their library right then and there, or 24/7. We're talking A+, MCSA, CCNA, Net Plus, just a ton of different certifications. It's amazing. Like you said, on Roku, they really did a great job of saying, we have something we want to talk about, so we're going to allow you from really any source to check this out. You can get started for free. In addition to the free streaming of the live courses recorded each day for free with the account, it gives you access to a selected free lessons from multiple courses. I'm just reading this from the site. Also, the entire Microsoft Technology Associate Certificate course for free. A lifetime free membership gets you started, but a monthly subscription gets you really a whole bunch of other stuff, including TIA, Microsoft certification, Cisco ISC2 exams with new lessons recorded every single day. Their mission is to educate people in the world of technology with readily available, engaging content, access quality tools. Now, if you haven't tried this out, you totally should. Why not? Right? It's just like all the stuff we've talked about. But what's really neat is the high quality of, like, they have a neat backdrop for their studio. Right? They have very, personable people. It reminds me a lot of the Microsoft Academy, but just for specific certification style stuff. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that comes from the on-air interaction. You can actually do the whole raise your hand and ask a question while they're going along. So it's like having an online chat room, like boom, right there. You can ask great questions. So
it's like being on our show.
It's like being on our show.
Raise their hand. Yes.
Absolutely.
Cool.
So let's talk about the Internet of Things.
Sure.
What is the most exciting news you heard this morning?
Probably the most exciting news that I've heard in the recent times would be Windows 10 coming to the Raspberry Pi, wasn't it?
Yes, for $35, Windows 10 is going to be running for free on a Raspberry Pi version 2. Now, here's the point I'm with Raspberry Pi 2 that I want to make is that the modules from Raspberry Pi 1 work on the Raspberry Pi 2. That is gorgeous because a lot of people have already kind of started dabbling in it. So what would suck, right, is if like a whole bunch of new, connectors and proprietary stuff come out. Nope, works. That's
Love
awesome. Yep. Galileo from Intel. I'm looking forward to checking that out. I think that Galileo 2 or whatever, like iterations of that, are going to come out. So I'm very excited about that too. I think the Internet of Things is just going to continue just to be really cool, hobbyist type stuff. But the fact that they brought Windows 10 to it,
look at that. Look at that. What do you know? Raspberry Pi.
Nice. Starter kit. Okay, so for our visual... yeah, nice. So visual, he was just showing off a Raspberry Pi. I just wanted to tell our audience listeners that. Okay, so the next up is Xamarin. Now, arguably, Xamarin is one of the best cross-platform mobile technological solutions for app developers who want to target Android and iOS using C# tools to write native code. Now, obviously, you can write Windows applications as well here, but Xamarin offers their own IDE, but allows you to do plugins for Visual Studios for free. Those are not so awesome. The paid ones are way better. So this is really cool, but what I want to talk about is Xamarin University, the mobile app development training. So you can get unlimited live mobile app development training for mobile experts in your time zone on your schedule as often as you would like for $2,000. Well, essentially, it's $1,995.
Yep.
That's a weird number, right? Like $1,995. I don't know. That seems a little. I don't know.
It had to be less than 2,000 because 2,000 sounds a lot more than 1995.
Hey, you're right. Yeah, I guess.
Yes, it does.
So marketing.
That being said, Xamarin is great because we can do all of our cross-platform stuff, right? I mean, it just makes it so much easier. The Xamarin being in the same style IDE as Visual Studio makes it feel very, very, close. And the ability to build something like a connected app, right?
Right.
And I just lost the name of what they're calling it right now. It's what's the new app that you can do in 2013, 2015?
Universal?
One Universal app. It builds it just like a Universal app, right? It has your code core for your services and data and whatnot, and then you skin your different front ends. Fantastic product. There's nothing bad that I can say about it. It makes everything look very customizable for your own phone, right? And I know we talked about this offline, but one of the biggest things that torques me, and I'm going to throw one of my favorite airline people under the bus, and that's Delta. They have an app for the Android, and they have an app for the Windows Phone. The Windows Phone, if I were let's start with the Android app. The Android app, you boot it up, it looks like their website, which is cool, whatever. You bring up the Windows app, and it looks like a Windows app on a phone, which is fine, and I think that's the way it should be. I think the Android one should look like an Android app on a phone, right? Not necessarily their website. That being said, I can do almost everything with the Android. If I bring it up right now, it'll show that I have one flight coming. I can look at my seats. I can change them. I can do whatever I want. If I bring up the Windows app, I can guarantee you I'll have 4 flights in there from weeks ago that I've already been off.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
And that's it syncing, and I'm not sure why that is, but over half the time whenever I try to do something on that app, it fails. So just because it looks good, and I would much prefer using the Windows app, unfortunately it doesn't function as well as the Android app. And I don't have an iOS, so I can't really tell you about that one. But that being said, Xamarin brings that in there, right? So you actually build the same back end, so you don't have these issues, and you have different front ends, but the front ends should look and feel like the phone does as you're using the phone in its normal manner.
Right. Yeah, native is very important, and I think that's what highlights the most about what Xamarin offers is C# to iOS and Android because
Yeah.
there's tons of want for Java. You always hear about JavaScript and Java programmers needed, but eventually I see this swing back to just say a Xamarin type of solution where you're just like, man, there's just a ton of C# and C++ devs, and they may or may not want to hop into Java or JavaScript, depending on the HTML, the front end, and all that kind of thing. But the point being is that there are, I would say, way more C# devs than there are others kinds, and you got to leverage that at some point. And I think that Xamarin does a really good job of leveraging that that developer base. The next thing I want to talk about, which we haven't necessarily talked about before, which is Android Studio. Now, Android Studio is by far, to me, better than Eclipse. Many of you hate the IDE Eclipse. I mean, I can understand why, because good Lord, does it take forever for the emulator to function right, and I could go into it, but it's a whole thing.
Yep.
Android Studio is doing a really good job of starting to iterate and make a better case for Android having its own official Android IDE. I think this is very important for the platform. I think it's more important for devs because time is money, and that allows them to create things better. It comes with all the tools you need. Some of the requirements is Hyper-V. I mean, you gotta have that, guys. I mean, a lot of people don't realize. Read the prerequisites for this stuff before you go and download it. But I suggest everybody go to developer.android.com and check out some of the stuff that this offers, because it always helps to know what other people are using to get the job done, so that you are always best in class, that you're a professional.
Yeah. Very true. I actually have a lot of friends that use the Android OS, right?
Right.
Or code in Java for that matter.
Sure.
And they all use Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a package that I was supposed to install at my last job that would give me the IDE and allow me to test things. I never got it to work.
Yeah,
I literally, it takes days to get it to work. And I know one of my coworkers that was a Java developer, it took him like 2 or 3 days to get it reset up when he got his new laptop. And that's, for me, I install Visual Studio, an hour and a half later, I'm coding. I don't have to worry about anything. Sometimes some updates, of course, but for the most part, I'm coding in an hour, hour and a half.
That's
fantastic.
Wow. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Not to down Android or developers or anything like that. It's just that I think if Visual Studio would allow you to do what you needed to do, you probably would purchase it and not use Eclipse.
Right. Exactly.
Nothing against Eclipse. It's just clumsy.
Well, and again, Visual Studio now Community Edition is free, and you can have extensions for free plugged into that, and you can develop and package and send that stuff out. It's
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that whole free stuff, I mean, it's not necessarily the way the world works.
Huge difference.
All right, the next thing, the next thing is launchcode.org. Now, many of you have heard me talk about LaunchCode before. I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about LaunchCode before, but LaunchCode is going to grow insofar as it uses the Harvard Intro to Computing way of training people to get a job in technology. So it allows people to, and we're going to talk about this in depth here in a second, but be paired up with other programmers. So you'll go through 6 months, essentially. I mean, you do it at your own pace, so you can knock it out in practically 2 months if you wanted to. But there are, once you're done with the training that's free, you go $15 an hour apprenticeship for 60 days, I want to say. Maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less, depending on the situation. And you can get one-on-one with fantastic programmers, the likes of Anheuser-Busch, Upside, GE, MasterCard, just tons and tons of great companies, programmers, and after that 60 days is up, they can hire you. So you're getting paid for your internship, okay? You're learning and doing the do, and then you can get a job working for that company. Or if it doesn't work out, you can go and get paired up with another company and see if it works out there. We need more of this in the U.S., and we need more paired programming in general to help out with the production level, like I'm sure Gus will talk about here in a second, and more to share the knowledge in hopes that you can build the kind of team for success that many companies really need right now. Gus, do you have any thoughts on that?
Actually, I do. Sorry, I muted because I was coughing earlier.
No, you're fine.
No, I think peer programming and pair programming is very, very vital for somebody learning. And in fact, I've seen some great code come out of sessions with higher level people doing it. So that being able to be being paired up to an internship, right, where you actually go in knowing some of what you need to do, maybe not all of it, maybe you're a very novice developer, but having those companies be willing to pair up with you and actually teach you is priceless.
Absolutely, yeah,
definitely priceless.
So
things like that I think you're going to see a lot more of those coming down the pike.
Right. Another thing I want to talk about, education is big for both Gus and I, especially at the younger ages. And there's a project called #CodeRed. It's code and then open brackets, red, R-E-D, close brackets. And the point of this is to teach students from grade 1 through 12 how to a computer language education program. It's how to teach them coding skills. We need this as a standard curriculum going forward. I know I preach about this all the time, but if you want these types of these things in your area, man, start and reach out and start a dialogue. Right? You can even ask us. We got some relationships with these stories, like Launch Code and CodeRed, because they're local to our STL Tech Talks our main company's headquarters here in St. Louis. So, but you can have more of that stuff, and I think that's very, very important. Gus, I know you like speaking on this.
No, I do think it's very important. We've had a couple of STEM conversations. One with the infamous Scott Hanselman, where, and actually you'll probably hear a couple coming up in the next couple of weeks. One with Carl Franklin, as soon as we can get him on, him out from under the snow in the Northeast.
Yeah, right.
But I know Carl is working on something. I'll let him discuss it. But that started with school children will vamp itself up to actually something else. But being able to bring school children in. And I know one of the cool things, this is going to date me, but there were two things that drew me to the in and actually engaged me at the junior high that I was at. One was the fact that we had a video lab. And this was, the old VHS, right? Or actually, it might have been beta back in the day. That's even dating me more. But we had cameras. We were able to shoot. We had full production videos with slides and stills and stuff that we take for granted today that are just built into Windows, right, or whatever we're doing. But that was really cool. And the second part was that we actually had a weather observatory built into the building.
Oh, wow.
You could actually see winds and barometric pressures and weather patterns and things like that. But back in the day, those were not common. Today you can buy one, put one out on your swing set, right? That's much cooler, but back then that was very engaging. So today we've got the STEM programs they're trying to stimulate all of our kids into science, math, engineering, and technology, and also cool things like robotics teams and programming like CodeRed. CodeRed is fantastic because the faster you teach a kid how to program or teach a computer what to do, the faster he feels empowered to do something in industry, which is even better.
Yep.
I think we're all winners. I think we're all winners for that. Until they start hacking things, then that's bad.
Right.
No hacking.
I think the youth could, and I'm going to be a little brazen here, but I think the youth could change the world even further with HoloLens from Microsoft, and insofar as the way we can just change our world a little bit. But I want to talk something about a new thing, and arguably is one of the most highly buzzwords that are used in the coding arena. Angularjs. All right.
Oh.
Why Angularjs? Yes. HTML is great for declaring static documents, but falters. when we try to use it for declaring dynamic views in web applications. Now, many of you experience that. AngularJS lets you extend HTML vocabulary for your application. The resulting environment is extraordinarily expressive, readable, and quick to develop for. Now, it's a tool set for building the framework most suited to your application's development. It is fully extensible and works well with other libraries. Every feature can be modified or replaced to suit your unique development workflow, and you can find out more about this at angularjs.org. But I'm telling you, I mean, this is by far one of the biggest, hey, is there going to be a session on AngularJS with using Ajax, Bootstrap, and all this other kind of stuff? And it's always talked about, I would say, the most over these last 2 years. I wouldn't say you can argue with that.
Well, I can tell you, and I'm going to start out with the way this whole thing started. And it started with Knockout.js. Mm-hmm. Knockout.js is a binding engine. There's a lot of controversy or arguments or discussions or whatever you wish to call them on the speaker circuit as to why Angular, why Knockout, and if you're doing one, why not the other, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I can answer that. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to bind to a web page, right? Send some content in, bind them to text boxes, have the responses automatically generated back into a JSON response, and then sent back to a server? Knockout works great. Are you trying to create an entire site that has directives, extensible movements, services that allow data to flow both ways, CSS modification, a little bit more HTML5 pieces for dynamic viewing? Then it's Angular. It would be the difference between writing your own website and writing like an enterprise application. Chances are your own website, you're going to take the quickest and easiest way to do it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. If it's functional, it ships. We're going to get to that in a little bit with Don Felker's article, but there is no bad technology choice. Right. Angular is a larger framework. It's not a binding engine. It allows you to do a ton more, but it's a lot harder to learn. That being said, if you're building an enterprise app and most likely making a SPA app or a single-page application, you're more than likely going to go for AngularJS and use its robustness to boost your productivity. I'm going to get off my soapbox and continue on.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're the star of this. I'm just kind of the monkey that comes on afterwards. So the next up is Ruby on Rails, web development that doesn't hurt. Now, Brad Urani from Upside, one of our fervent listeners, and really happy about this guy. He actually uses this stuff. So I had a statement on a previous show that I retract now. He uses this for financial software, and a lot of it is very secure. So I retract previous statements that I've made on this subject. Now, Ruby on Rails is an open source web framework that's now it's a framework, all right? So there's a little bit of a dynamic shift there that's optimized for programmer happiness and sustainable productivity. Now, frameworks you can get bogged down in a little bit because you're like, okay, well, what happens after this, and and that kind of thing, and code gets a little messy. Now that can happen with any framework and/or language, but Ruby does a pretty good job for the most part of keeping your code pretty. Some would call it simple, but I think it's just pretty clean. And it doesn't allow for a whole lot of stuff to mess around. Now it's an open source released under Rail under the MIT license and Ruby under the Ruby license. So for more information, rubyonrails.org. You can find out a whole bunch of stuff about it. There's agile web development with Rails. There's tons of resources you can find on this subject. What are your thoughts?
A company that I used to work for actually uses this quite a bit to do quite a few things. It is Java-based, so this is a Java-based language. It's not Microsoft-based. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, and I probably am, so somebody can blast me later, that it's based kind of upon the MVC framework. But that could be. I think that is Rails now that I think about it. But it doesn't matter. It's still a JavaScript. Architecture, there are controllers, so this is an MVC library. You can extend it. It's a very robust framework. People that use it love it. People that don't use it could care less. 6 ways from Sunday. But it's secure. It is secure. It is a language. It does help you get to where you need to go fast, and it is faster to build with a framework than it is from scratch. And it's proven. I mean, companies are using it, so companies can't be wrong, can they? Well, one could, but multiple can't.
Right. It's kind of like science, the peer review. I was talking about this earlier on another show. That's kind of the beautiful thing about it is when you have multiple independent, views of the same thing that come to the same conclusion, then there's what's called scientific consensus.
There's a consensus on it. And my consensus on it is that people do use it. So if people use it, then definitely it's a viable product.
Absolutely.
Say it that way.
Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to talk about are kind of two things in one. One's Codeplex, and the other one is the entity framework. So first, let's take on Codeplex. Codeplex is project hosting for open source software. I believe started by Microsoft before GitHub, but don't quote me on that too much. But it's a good place to go when you're trying. If you can't find it on MSDN, and if you can't find it on Microsoft Virtual Academy, and you can't find it on some other things, this is another fantastic source of open source software hosting that you can use, a lot like GitHub, to knock out projects that you want to knock out. And then the next part of this is under Microsoft.NET Entity Framework. So the Entity Framework is an object relational mapper that enables .NET developers to work with relational data using domain-specific objects. So that's really important to some. And it eliminates the need for data access code that developers usually need to write for each individual hit to the database. And Entity Framework is actively developed by the Entity Framework team, which is the Microsoft Open Tech Hub in collaboration with Open Community Development. Open source is really, that's the buzzword of going into 2015, right? So this is pretty cool. Good source. I'm sure, Gus, you have plenty to say on this subject.
Actually, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that JJ was right. Codeplex was up before GitHub by 23 months.
Oh, nice.
May 2006 to April 2008. Those are the launched numbers, or at least from Wikipedia. So, but that's what I remember too. I remember it was at least a couple of years before. So that sounds about correct. And it is hosted or owned by Microsoft. Codeplex is. GitHub is a third party, I believe, if I remember correctly. And one of the people that I actually met, who I followed for years and years and years, Phil Hack, is actually over there currently. And the guy's fantastic blogger from back in the day. Used to work with Microsoft, but fantastic person. I hope to have him on sooner or later to talk about GitHub and some of the things that are coming up there as well.
Nice. So next up, whoops, that was the same thing.
Entity framework. Cool.
MongoDB. I'm gonna let you talk about MongoDB. I talked about it the one time, but I'm gonna let you talk about it.
Yeah. So MongoDB, I apologize, is one of those weird animals because it's a non-relational database or a non-SQL database. I shouldn't say it's non-relational. It does allow relations, but it's not concrete relations. It's one of the things that scares me about it, that you can send just about anything you want to it in a structure and say paste it here and it will, and the next one that you paste in there could be completely different. Fully configurable, very, very interesting, and actually brings out a couple of major thoughts in my head now that I'm thinking about it, about one of the problems that I'm dealing with currently. But that being said, I'm not sure that it's my go-to for an online transactional database. Hence, the database that sits behind your ATM when you're getting cash out or creating a charge with your debit card. To me, I would use a transactional database there and then stream that transactional database's updates to a MongoDB in the front, so it gives me improved searchability and relationability to my customers. So if you think about that, I would, and you're looking at a site like Amazon.com, I would definitely have the entire catalog in Mongo and make it fly. because that's going to make your searches fast. But my updates are going to be in SQL, and my sales are going to be in SQL, and then my sales will update my Mongo as things sell out or whatnot, where I can have just a little bit of a lag, right? Where you don't necessarily need to know that there are 5 items left, and now there are 4, and now there are 3, because the time that it'll take me to update that, it might get to 3 for you, and then you'll see a 3 when you hit save. It's not going to be mission critical for the most part.
That's awesome, man. That is firsthand from the guy that the reason why he makes the big bucks is that right there.
Mm-hmm. Now I can tell you that Lee Brandt, who we've had on the show, will argue with me profusely about its uses, and he's got his opinion. I have mine. I still think that it's a great product, and that CouchDB and a couple of the other NoSQL SQL Server or databases are fantastic. I just prefer to use them my way. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think
there's no wrong. There's no wrong, everybody. It's just how you determine to do it. Oh, and before I go on, I want to make, because there's probably somebody going, you never made a reason why Mongo doesn't work as a transactional database.
Right.
Mongo does not have ACID transactions or transactions where I can say, do not commit this to the database or databases or tables until I'm guaranteed that everything has gone through and no check has failed. With Mongo, you throw it at the wall and whatever sticks stays. And for me, if I'm doing 2 checkouts or somebody's trying to steal my credit card and I get in there first, I don't want to be able to charge, $1,500 and have $500 in my account. I want it to actually catch it step by step by step to stop it. So that being said, otherwise, I'm sure that you can code some type of transaction, but it's not a distributed transaction coordinator like SQL and Oracle are. So right. I'm off my soapbox now.
I love it, dude. Love it. I mean, like I said, I'm just here for the ride. So the next thing I want to talk about, and I don't think gets enough attention, maybe because people don't give a crap about it or whatever, but TypeScript. It's something that we've heard over the last couple of years because it's just came out over the last couple of years. TypeScript lets you write JavaScript the way you really want to, and this is their pitch. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript that compiles to plain JavaScript. Any browser, any host, any OS, open source, scalable. Modules, classes, interface. There's tons of information on TypeScript. TypeScript
Language.org.
Lang.org. I don't know why that was. I don't know why I was thinking of Jeremy Lang. Anyways.
Johnny Lang.
Yeah.
So anyway, TypeScript is an interesting subject. I'm 50-50 on TypeScript, to be honest, with all of our followers. One of the reasons being is because it creates Java on the fly, and that Java isn't guaranteed, right? So you can't guarantee it's going to. Well, I suppose you can guarantee it's going to come out the same way after you look at the compiled output form, but when writing it, depending on what you're doing, sometimes it can screw a few things up. That being said, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just a different way to create JavaScript. But the cool part about TypeScript is it is object-oriented and it is able to be fully validated. So you can actually class type things, whereas JavaScript is just an object-based language. You pick it, it's an object. It thinks an object is an object. Apples, oranges, they're objects. They're the same thing. Right. So that being said, this brings it down to where I can class an apple and I can class an orange. And when I test them, they do not equal each other because they're not an object of the underlying piece. So that's one cool thing. It's also being developed by the guys that are behind C#. So it'll be kind of interesting to see where it goes in the next year and a half.
Nice. So if you don't mind, handle the next 1, 2, 3, 4 people that our followers should be following.
I suppose I could do that. Then I think my voice is going to go out. So anyway,
just in time.
Number one person that I would say go read his blog, and it's followed by like a 1.1, would be Scott Hanselman at hanselman.com. Scott works on the Visual Studio product team He blogs consistently. He speaks even more than he blogs. How he gets any work done on a day-to-day basis, I'll never know. But the point being is that he's really good. He knows his stuff, and he shows off all of the new Visual Studio bits either right before or right after they're released. It tells you how to get them, how to use them, and how to use them in context, which is awesome. The 1.1 would be his boss a couple of rungs up. Scott Hunter is in between them. Scott Guthrie is the VP over some of that site in Azure and a few other spots. And he's at weblogs.asp.net/ScottGu, as in GU, or Scott Guthrie. Scott is a fantastic person. Through all of my contacts, all of them say that if you throw Scott a question, he will answer it. It may take him an hour or two, but he will personally answer every question. He has insight and forethought that is unbelievable within Microsoft, and he's actually a very talented, interesting person to actually watch on stage speak as well, especially if he's in his red shirt, which he usually is. Those two people would be the top two. Next is a friend of the show, a friend of mine, a really good person as well, Rob Tiffany, who also works for Microsoft, but he works in the Internet of Things / mobility space. And he talks about a lot of technology, and that's across the board. I mean, there isn't anything that he wouldn't be willing to talk about. Former military guy like yourself, JJ, interesting background, fantastic person. The last one that I have for everyone is Phil Hack, and he's at hacked, HAACKED.com. And Phil Hack and Hanselman both have been blogging since before blogs were cool, literally. Phil Hack joined Microsoft, stayed at Microsoft for a few years, and then went to GitHub. I was fortunate enough to finally meet him in November in Seattle. A fantastic meeting because I actually didn't know it was Phil Hack. I thought his name was Phil and he was just on the Microsoft team. Didn't realize who it was. I didn't put two and two together. Guy's fantastic. He's brilliant. His blogs have always been epic. I remember following him before he even worked for Microsoft. So if that tells you how long I've actually read his blog, but
wow.
Fantastic person. Definitely somebody you should follow in the technology space. And I'm targeting more developers, not necessarily technologists. But Hack, I would say that most of these people are also technologists in their own right. But I'll let you get the last one, JJ. I know this is close to your heart, so.
Yeah, it is a little bit. You know, Don. You know, and you know Don. You worked with him, and you know this guy, and
I've worked with Don a couple of times actually. Fantastic guy, very interesting man to sit down and chat with. Actually, it's one of those people that you're very blessed to have known.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say a little bit. So if you go to Don DONN Felker FELKER, if you go to his blog right now, the very first story that pops up is kind of the inspiration for the show. It ships, it's profitable, it's important. He talks about JavaScript people, Node, AngularJS, Ruby on Rails, .NET, ASP, MVC, Java with Spring, all this stuff.
Yep.
Doesn't matter, man. You have to understand that there are products in the world that exist. You, our listener, and the companies that if some people's jobs, like a whole company is built on some crappy application. Some people will call crappy, but it doesn't matter. It's important and it's profitable, so it ships. So there are a lot of there's just so much to the dynamic of this story, and I think it speaks to him as a person as well. But what changed his career was this idea of remembering that we are trying to solve problems with a specific, with a set of tools, and it doesn't always have to be this crazy out of the way, or try to make one tool just work for everything, right? And understanding that being an engineer sometimes means being resourceful and finding ways just to get stuff done, and then just work and iterate on what you've done, and not try to knock it out of the park always with the right out of the gate. And I think this is very important. Awesome guy. Awesome site, and just a really, really great guy to follow. He has the top apps in the Android app store. So, the guy knows what he's doing, man.
He does know what he's doing, and he's known what he was doing since before he even started with the Android stuff. I mean, the guy's actually a fantastic programmer. And the way you can listen to one of our former shows where we had him on, where he talks about how he got into programming is not normal. I mean, not that a lot of us are, but he is definitely the abnormal kid on the block, which makes him even better, I think, as a developer, because he thinks outside the box and comes from a completely different aspect and picture as everyone else. But I do want to mention that currently, in the company that I work for currently, we're going down the agile methodology path, and being able to ship something, and we can define ship as anything we want. To me, it's putting something on a website that somebody can see. That's shipping. Ship something every iteration and show progress means so much more than shipping a product that works. You'll get there in the long run. And we all know that software development is like building a block structure, right? You start somewhere, you start building it out, and all of a sudden you have this big, cool Lego robot that's going to fall on top of you and smash you. But the cool part, though, is that you're seeing progress. Not only are you seeing it, you're feeling the elation and the bonuses for having success, because you're actually showing something that you've created with your own hands, or your team has created with their own hands. And that kind of gets lost, because a lot of people say, but it's not right. The code isn't perfect.
Right.
And I know that I won't name the person, but the owner of the company that I work for has said, I don't care what it looks like, does it function?
Right.
Pretty is a aspect of after function. We need it to function, then we need it to look pretty, then we can ship it, then we can make it faster, and we can make it more elegant. But the clients are never going to see the elegance of the code behind it. They're going to see the speed.
Right.
But to be able to do something cooler or better or whatever, and it's about the same speed as it was before, they're still happy. But if you make it faster and it's elegant in the back end in the long run, then everyone wins. The people that are creating it win, the clients win, and the company wins on top of it. And that's one of the stresses and the core competencies that I'm trying to build within this company right now is, let's ship fast, let's fail often, because the more we fail, the more we learn, the better it is in the final product. Because if I have to wait 13 weeks for the final product to be able to fail once, I'm already 13 weeks behind, man. Now I've got 13 more weeks to go fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one of the things that I like.
Yeah, you find out so many problems and when you release and you figure out the hits, there's just so much to that. So great information, wonderful. There's also, I see here in the notes, I didn't know if you wanted me to mention it or not, but Miguel Castro has a Channel 9 interview. You can find that in our show notes for this show. And I suggest everybody go check that out. That's pretty awesome. Gus, do you have any final thoughts on what I consider one of our better shows? I mean, it was just fun. It was fluid. It was, we were specifically talking. I don't know. It just felt good. So, do you have any thoughts on the end of this episode?
All of our shows are fun, JJ. I have an immense. It makes me immensely happy to sit here and talk with people, peers, about software development, technologies, the way to do things, the way not to do things. Everyone has their own opinion. Everyone else's stinks, but we as a whole in the developer community usually take that for granted. I mean, I'd say 97.5 or 98% of the people are very happy listening to it, arguing with each other for a minute or two, and then going, oh yeah, your way was right, or they'll both work and we can just walk away happy. It's that 2 to 2.5% that make it horrible for everyone else, that have to have their way even if it's wrong, and that's hard. But that's okay, because they still have an opinion. It's valid no matter what.
Right. Exactly.
There's more than one way to skin a cat. I just don't want to go through them today.
Exactly, and that was the point. So awesome. Charities I want you to all know about: Hope Line, a domestic violence prevention and support organization; Hope for Young Adults with Cancer; and Healthy Me. Go to healthymehub.com for more information. So thank you again, Gus, for everything you do, and thank you to all of our fans. We love and thank you for your support of the show. And so I would just say from the entire CodeCast crew, good coding, we're out.